let's take a look at this 1 cedi per liter. First off, how do you receive it? Seeing that already many people have not expressed joy over it. There's been a lot of back and forth on it.
Okay, I think that the more the government wants to justify the collection of the 1 Ghana cedis per liter, the more the government contradicts itself, and the more it confirms our position that there's no need for any 1 Ghana cedis per liter to put burden on the end user, bearing in mind that previously the end user has been paying for this particular product at an expensive prices that affected their household expenditure, that has affected their ability to invest, that has also affected their ability to save and also do certain also to save, invest, and improve standard of living. The government comes to say we need to pay 1 Ghana cedis per liter. Now, first of all, the government says that this particular 1 Ghana cedis per liter is to procure fuel, and the argument they make is that we need an emergency fuel of about $1.2 billion. I think that is an inaccurate argument. There's no truth in it, and maybe the government just wants to mobilize some sympathy with respect to confirm, from Ghanaians, so as to confirm the collection of these levy. The reason I say that is that if you look at our power sector, we don't need $2 billion worth of fuel to power our thermal plants or our combined plants. Already we are spending $1.2 billion to procure natural gas. Now, if they are telling us that also emergency fuel alone needs about $1.2 billion, they mean that we are spending $2.4 billion into the procurement of fuels for our thermal plant, and that is unsustainable. That nowhere in the world will we spend such huge sums of money to power our energy generation. I think it is not true. Maybe they are hiding some figures from us and they are not making us know the reality of the figures. That is one. Now, the second part is that you also hear that government says that we want to use this money or levy or the outcome of this particular levy to pay sector shortfalls or sector debt. But fortunately for us, the debt is reducing in terms of cedi equivalent to offset some of these debts. Most of these debts are in dollars. So the moment the cedi appreciates, and with the magnitude of the appreciation of the cedi to the dollar, it means that we need less 30% of revenue that we had projected for to pay for sector shortfalls. So if you are getting 30% savings from the appreciation of the cedi to pay for sector shortfalls, then why do you burden the end user with additional 1 Ghana cedis per liter? That is one. Two, there are other ways that we can solve these debt issues in the power sector once and for all than always imposing levies on petroleum products to take care of sector losses. One is that we have a system that always wastes a lot of money. For example, if you take the system losses alone, ECG NETCO system losses alone waste almost $611 million annually, right? If you're able to have these $611 million, it means we are saving about $300 million annually, and that goes to pay some of these legacy debt. In cedi equivalent, we are talking in excess of 9 billion Ghana cedis. If you go to our gas supply contracts, there are a lot of money we are wasting there because some of the gas supply contracts we signed them based on take or pay. So even if we do not have the infrastructure to take this gas, we are paying for this gas. And at any point in time, these are huge amounts we are paying for some gas supplies without even getting this gas to feed into our thermal plants because there are no processors in country to process this gas. How do we resolve that particular problem? Because resolving that particular problem, which even sometimes generates up to even $800 million, even halving it is about $400 million. We have saved a lot of money from there. If we talk of our power purchase agreements, we also signed contracts in dollar terms, and at any time when the CD depreciates, it becomes a worry to Ghanaians and also a worry to government. We need to renegotiate some of these contracts and put them in cities. That is also another savings. Apart from that, there are also contracts we signed with IPPs that are based on availability of plant and no productivity of plant. What I mean by that is that we sign this contract that at any point in time, whether we are using them or we are not using them, we are paying for their plants availability. Even if they are idle, we have to pay for them. Some of this contract, if we renegotiate some of this contract, we are likely going to save about $400 million annually. So there are critical ways in which we may be able to mobilize revenue to offset and defray this sector shortfall once and for all without recurrent shortfalls in future than always going to the fuel and then making sure that we always want to get money from fuel. That is not sustainable for some of us. And we think that government thinks that international market prices of petroleum products are becoming favorable, so we need to take advantage. Government thinks that the cedi has appreciated against the dollar. For that matter, we need to take advantage. But these are short term. For example, by August, if the cedi reaches its lowest point, which is around 10 Ghana cedis, 24 pesos, any increment on the international market means that price of petroleum products will begin to surge again. It will begin to surge. And when they begin to surge, what it means is that the export locally will also begin to surge. Will we withdraw the tax? No, because from experience, anytime there's a tax imposition on petroleum product, it's difficult for government to withdraw it. We started with special petroleum tax in 2014. We said we're going to use it to balance our budget. It's been there till date. We came to ESLA. We said that there was a sunset clause. It's with various amendments just to pay this debt. We've not been able to pay this debt, and it is still there. So this 1 Ghana cedis, it will be there in perpetuity because the critical issues that we need to tackle to solve the problem once and for all, we are not tackling those issues.
COMAC has raised concerns. In their letter, they say that when they went to see the minister to show him their concerns, to express their concerns to him, the meeting was virtually a ceremonial one. It didn't look like a meeting where the minister regarded their input or their concerns. For a chamber such as COMAC to say this, looking at government's entrenched position to continue, how does this bode for us in this petroleum industry, in our energy sector and all?
I think that NDC thinks that they have the numbers in parliament. And because of the numbers they have in parliament, they always want to bully their way out. Those strategies or that strategy will not work, and rather will send a negative signal to the Ghanaian people about how they are manning the various institutions and also how they are governing us. They are governing us without participation. They are governing us without responding to our needs in terms of policy build-up. They think that they know and they have the numbers, and because they have the numbers, they just want to bully their way out. Now, COMAC is the implementer of this particular tax policy. And as I was giving you the history of some of these taxes, if you take the special petroleum tax, SPT, for example, SPT was passed in November 2024. The implementation started in January 2020. The SPT was passed in November 2014. When it was passed in November 2014, implementation started in January 2015. The reason the implementation started in January 2015 was that Minister of Finance then, Setepe, was preparing the minds of oil marketing companies who are going to implement this particular policy, engaging them to know how best we'll be able to pass some of these, we'll be able to implement the SPT, which is a special petroleum tax. When you came to the ESLA was passed in June 2015. Implementation started in January 2016. The whole purpose for the delay in implementation was that government was not the actual implementer. Government was just a revenue collector. And these COMAC people, some of them procure the fuel based on cash and carry. So anytime you input it, you impose any one levy on them, it means that they have to go and mobilize that particular one levy and come and pay you before they're able to lift the product. Some also lift the product based on bond. So anytime you're imposing 1 Ghana cedis, they have to now go to their banks and inform their banks that beginning today or the next day, we have to now reschedule our bonds so that we'll be able to lift from any of the depots. Now you pass an act or you amended an act on Wednesday, then on Monday you want to implement it and you are not the implementer. So if the common people have resources to go and procure the products cash and carry, you've not engaged them. If they have to go to their banks for the banks to now redraw or re-put a new bond or insurance company for what you call insurance guarantee or bond or bank guarantee, you've not asked them, you've not allowed them to go to their banks to do some of these arrangements before they start lifting on Monday. For example, if today some are going to lift about 54,000 liter trucks, it means that they need 54,000 Ghana cedis multiplied by 6. That is how much they will need. And if they are going to need that, which means they have to go to their banks before they can get this money because they procure the products based on cash and carry. I think that the rush to which we want to implement this particular amendment without recourse to the various stakeholders in the industry also goes to confirm my earlier comment that I think the government needs resources, and needing resources, they think that the easiest way is the petroleum product because petroleum products is an inelastic product. So let's go there and then get our money from. But as I indicated somewhere, I'm repeating it here, this is not sustainable and will not solve our debt issue. The debt will continue ballooning until we all come to the table and find a sustainable way of addressing PPA contracts, a sustainable way of addressing gas supply contracts, a sustainable way of reducing our system losses and making sure that our cedi becomes very stable and appreciable or appreciating against the dollar. These are the only ways we can solve the debt situation in our power sector. But petroleum cannot solve that particular problem.
Is it that at the end of the day, it is the consumer who always suffers for this? Some stakeholders have called this action by the president a lazy approach to solving its issues, that there are so many holes that the government needs to plug in the petroleum industry. And so translating this downstream is a lazy approach. But consumers are burdened, consumers are tired. It took a very long time to get GPRT to this point of 15% reduction in lorry fares. And even at this point of 15%, some of the drivers have refused to adjust the fares to exactly 15%. Some are doing 10, some are doing 12, some are even not doing up until 10%. Following this passage of the bill and then the president has sent into it, GPRTU has cried foul. GPRTU says that if this is not looked at, they would have no option but to roll it over to the consumer. Where does government come into this conversation again and realize that the consumer is overburdened, the consumer is tired, the consumer is getting overtaxed?
One of the goals of the Sustainable Development Goals is affordability of energy, right? And in most countries, for those countries to move their people from energy poverty, either from the rural level or also from the urban level, you have to look at how energy is available and very, very affordable to them. And that also ensures energy security anyway. And that is the agenda for most countries. But it looks as if Ghana, that has not been our agenda. Anytime we are driving most of our population from energy poverty, someone finds a way to introduce some levies and then make sure that the product becomes very expensive. And normally they argue that you were procuring the product 14 Ghana cedis or 15 Ghana cedis. Now you are procuring it at 12 Ghana cedis. So we are not making you enjoy the full consumer surplus of that particular price decline. And I think that is unfair to the consumer. In Ghana, transport or commercial transport is the one of the least paid workforce in Ghana. If you look at that particular workforce, as at 2015, when we did Ghana Statistical Service published their labor force survey. I think they published it in around 2017 or so, but data was picked in 2015. If you look at the labor force survey, we have more than 149,000 people engaged in this activity of commercial transport business. And at that time, annually, their compensation or their wage annually was around less than 2,000 Ghana cedis or so annually. So it tells you that that sector is one of the least paid sectors in the economy.
Let me hold you for just a moment before you go to your second point. The Industrial Relations Officer for GPRTU, Abbas Imoro, joins us. Let me pick his thoughts quickly. I'll come back and take your next thoughts on the matter. Hello, Abbas. Good morning. Thank you for your time, sir.
Morning, madam. Thank you for calling.
Yes, the last time we spoke to you, just about a week ago, you were very distraught about this 1 cedi per litre. It seemed to have taken you and the GPRTU by surprise. Following that, you have stated that you will be embarking on a strike if this comes into full effect. Do you still stand by your words of embarking on a strike?
Yes, we still stand by that. Well, we've come to work today and we are all looking at what today we're going to work. Today is not over. Things can change, things can be the same. So for now, we haven't heard anything from the government, so we still stand by our words.
Well, the tax 1 cedi per litre, really, if nothing changes, Abbas, is the consumer going to suffer for it? Are you going to review your fares upwards again?
We haven't made, I speak to decisions taken, so it will be premature for me to say that now. We have so many weapons to use, so we still have to wait for.
When you say you have so many weapons to use, Abbas, please break it down for us to understand what weapons you have at your disposal.
Our last powerful weapon is to embark on the sit-down strike. That is the chemical weapon we have. So after that, we believe in dialogue. We said we haven't taken an entrenched position. So if we are being invited, fine. If we are not invited, to move ahead with our decision.
You mentioned earlier that this came at your blind side. Does it really mean that in this sending this bill to Parliament, you were not engaged in any way? Since this government came, you have said that they have been open in negotiating with you and speaking with you. The last time about the adjustment of fares, you met with the Transport Minister, Honorable Bukari Nipe and all. How come this matter of 1 cedi per litre, which largely affects commercial drivers, you were not called to the table? What could have accounted for that?
That is the most painful part, because we open up, we wholeheartedly negotiate with them, and we're able to reduce the lorry fare as low as 15%. So we see no reason why they have this hidden, and they never mention it to us. If they mentioned it to us, we would have at least adjusted the reduction. So a place whereby it won't create any problem or bring any destruction to our business. So here we are.
For drivers, for driver unions like yours, 1 cedi per litre, to what extent will it affect you?
1 cedi per litre is a lot of money for a professional driver. It's a lot of money. Normally, we should hear fuel prices are being reduced. It is pesos, either 10 pesos, 20 pesos, or 30 pesos. And even we charge every professional driver is happy with it, because he gets a smiling place in the briefing space as well. So once you do on the litre, let me demonstrate it to you.
Okay.
This once you do on the litre times 4.5, you get 4 cedis, 50 pesos. Times the number of gallons you use a day. What amount you get? Times 26 working days in a month. So once you do on the litre, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Well,
That is why we stood again.
on a normal day, how many liters would a regular church use for the full day?
It's different. Like let's take 10 gallons for example.
Okay.
Let's take 10 gallons.
We went to the La Paz lorry station. We spoke with some of your drivers there, and they expressed so much concern. They were distraught about the matter. If this continues, Abbas, you mentioned that you would go on a sit-down strike. How long will this strike take?
Well, to be honest with you, we are praying. Well, I don't have to say it on air, but we are praying those in authority see how best they could solve this problem. Because when we are back on the sit-down strike, to call it off is also another problem. So they should be aware of this.
Abbas, I come back to your strike again. At the end of the day, it is the consumer who suffers. This is a strike to show your displeasure, express your displeasure to the government. Is there any other form you could use rather than a strike, where you know the number of Ghanaians who depend on public transport for their daily lives in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening? Isn't there any other option you could look at away from the strike, so that the consumer again does not have to suffer?
I've told you the strike is the last option. That is our chemical weapon that we have. So when work comes to work, that's the weapon we have to use. And like you are saying, to those in authorities know that. They know that.
All right. Abbas, thank you so much. We're looking forward to what happens tomorrow. We're grateful that you spoke with us.
We are so happy for your calling.
Abbas Imoro is the Industrial Relations Officer for the GPRTU. I come back to Semse. Benjamin, thank you so much for waiting. You were making your point, your second point. You said that drivers or the public transport are part of those who are least paid in the country, and how this affects them. Hello, Benjamin. Hello. We will do well to establish contact with the Executive Director for SEMSE, Benjamin Insia. Obviously is not happy about this 1 cedi per litre levy. He is also making the same, adding his voice to comments that have been passed, especially on this platform, by various stakeholders, that this is not the right approach to use to blocking all of these leakages within our energy sector. There are so many things that we ought to be looking at, and translating these matters onto the consumer seems to be the easiest approach for government or those in power to do. However, there are other ways to look at the matter so that the consumer doesn't suffer. See, if GPRT decides to embark on a strike, it is the consumer that suffers again. And so at the end of the day, at the downstream, we are literally without strength and have to suffer for it. Hello, Benjamin. Okay. Well, whilst we look forward to establishing contact with Benjamin and having some more conversation, Richmond Roxing is the spokesperson for the Energy Ministry. Hello, Richmond. Thank you for your time, sir.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Following the passage of the bill and the assent to the bill, so many stakeholders have raised concerns. The Chamber of oil marketing companies have raised concerns. They said they met with the minister and it looked like the minister really did not care about what they had to say about the matter. In their letter, the COMAC says that the meeting, the engagement appeared to be merely ceremonial as the concerns raised have been completely disregarded. Again, GPRTU raises concerns that they were not engaged in any way before this bill was taken to Parliament. How did government miss steps like these, engaging these stakeholders in the sector?
Good morning to you. Good morning to your cherished viewers. It's unfortunate the statement came from Coleman because on Thursday, the minister had a very fruitful engagement with Comac. In fact, the meeting happened late in the afternoon with Comac. The meeting ended maybe around 2, 3 p.m. there about. The proposals presented were three, and the minister assured them that the government will look at the proposals. In fact, most of the proposals were largely finance related. And as a Ministry of Energy and Green Transition, the minister does not have the mandate to make decisions that border on finance. So what the minister said was that he will engage the Ministry of Finance. In fact, right at the meeting, and then they will confirm that the minister reached out to the Ministry of Finance informally and informed them that this letter will be forwarded to them for an action. This was Thursday. Friday was a holiday. Today is Monday. So to call that meeting ceremonial is very unfortunate because the letter they wrote or the proposal has been acted on, and that at this point it will be before the Ministry of Finance for further action. And the second point is that on the issue of engagement, the ministry continues to engage stakeholders. In fact, the ministry engaged stakeholders before the passage of the Amendment Act. The ministry is still engaging stakeholders to ensure that at the end of the day, all parties are, the concerns of all parties are addressed. So it is not accurate that the ministry missed the steps and that no engagements were made. No. In fact, if you look at COMAC, you only refer to one letter. I'm sure you've seen the second statement, but they released two statements yesterday. You only read one, but you've ignored the other. I don't know if it's an oversight. If you read the second statement by COMAC, which if you allow, I'll read a portion to you briefly. This is what COMAC said in their own statement. COMAC welcomes the revised implementation date for energy sector shortfall and debt repayment. Let me read the relevant portions to you. COMAC says they formally acknowledge and commend the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition, the Ministry of Finance, National Petroleum Authority, and GRE for the constructive engagement held. Then he said, following consultations and collaborative efforts, we are pleased to announce our alignment and satisfaction with the revised implementation date of the ESST, that's the Energy Sector Shortfall and Debt Repayment Levy, from 9th of June to 16th. And then they go ahead to say this decision reflects value of dialogue, partnership, and engagement among stakeholders. So the impression that stakeholder engagements were not had at all is inaccurate. And I'm glad that COMAC itself in their letter, they've confirmed that. I don't want to go into mentioning specifics, who we engage, who we not engage, but be rest assured that the ministry engaged and will continue to engage further. At this point in time, COMAC is happy. Like they said, they are satisfied with where we are, and that they've committed to paying the 1 cedi levy on each petroleum liter. What they've asked for, what the ministry or the government has granted, is the implementation date from 9th to 16th.
Well, the biggest stakeholder in this issue is also GPRTU. I'm away from COMAC. We literally just dropped the line with the industrial relations officer for GPRTU, Abasi Moro. And again, he continues to bemoan this 1 cedi per liter levy, saying that they have so much in their arsenal that they would use if government does not rescind its decision. One, they would do will be to embark on a sit-down strike. At the end of the day, this would affect nobody but the consumer. It's the consumer that always suffers for decisions such as these. What are you doing from the ministry's angle to engage GPRTU and also listen to their plight and translate it into your decisions moving forward? They say that they've been blindsided by this decision. They've been blindsided by this one CD. It's too much for them to pay. They are not in the position to honor this obligation.
Once again, as already indicated, the ministry will continue engagement with various stakeholders to ensure that everyone's concern or concerns are properly addressed. There's no way, like I said, the ministry will proceed with a major policy like this without engagement. People were happy when we engaged. Some were not happy. Some were concerned about the one CD. They asked for reduction. Others said the one CD was okay, looking at the explanation and where we are. Others even said that if you can even increase it. So you don't have 100% support to say that everybody should be happy. This they're talking about taxes. Generally, I'm not sure that you are happy when you are paying taxes. A lot of people generally are not, and it's the same reactions that we are seeing. But the ministry will continue to engage. There's no way the minister responsible for energy and green transition will sit aloof to make sure that the GPRC they go on strike. That will not happen. We are sure that,
Was GPRTU engaged ahead of
like I
this?
mentioned earlier, I don't want to go into specifics of the pool we engaged, the individuals that were engaged, because I don't think that at this point in time that's what we should focus our action on.
Roxanne, I ask that because GPRT has made a very categorical statement. They say that they were not engaged in any way. They were not called to the table. This was done at their blind side. They also received the news as the regular Ghanaian did. That's why I'm also picking from the angle of the ministry. Did you engage GPRTU to explain to them what you were seeking to do?
That is why I said that I don't want to go into specifics. The reason why I read Comac's statement is because they brought out a statement acknowledging that engagements were made. That's the only reason why I referred to it. But we engage widely. The minister engaged widely. In fact, as at before the passing of the bill, as at the time the bill was being passed, and even after the bill, like Comac mentioned, until Comac wrote in their statement that on the 5th they had a meeting with the minister. Nobody knew that those engagements had gone on. So I don't want to dwell on mentioning specifics, which groups were met and everything, but the assurance they have from the ministry is that engagement will continue.
Roxanne, we are most grateful for your time this morning.
You're welcome.
Richmond Roxanne is the spokesperson for the Ministry of Energy. Earlier we spoke with Abbas Imoro, who is the Industrial Relations Officer for the GPRTU, and Benjamin Intian, the Executive Director for SEMSE. Let's continue our conversation with Benjamin. Hello, Benjamin.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, let me pick, you heard from GPRT, you've heard from the spokesperson for the Ministry for Energy. Let me pick your final thoughts on this.
My final thought is that I think there's a bit of untruth on the part of the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition, as well as the Ministry of Finance, when they say stakeholders were engaged. In any policy formulation, stakeholder mapping is critical. And if you're mapping your stakeholders, GPRTU, who are going to bear this particular tax, ought to have been part of the pre-bill presentation stage. And the pre-bill presentation means that they ought to have been part of any agreement that will lead into sending the bill to Parliament. So if you engage them after the bill has been passed, then that is poor stakeholder engagement. Because now, if they refuse or they go contrary to what you've passed, will you go back to Parliament to amend the bill again? That is wrong. Now, Comac, he mentioned that Comac said they were engaged. Yes, Comac was engaged on 5th after the bill has been passed into law. And COMAC is a critical stakeholder because they are the implementers of this particular policy. So a proper stakeholder mapping will tell you that you meet them before the bill preparation or even during the bill preparation so that you get their input before even amending the bill. Also is subsequent after you've passed it into law. So there was no any engagement with anybody. They thought and they still think they have the numbers. So because the numbers, they want to bully their way out. But you see, my final comment on this particular matter is that export price for reducing or for introducing this particular levy around 15 Ghana cedis or maybe 17 Ghana cedis. And we want to take that part of the way. This will begin to surge and begin to that level where they took it from. They should be honest enough to take the 1 Ghana cedis off the price builder because their argument will fail. And we don't want to hear that, oh, we still need a 1 Ghana cedis because 2014, any introduction, even if prices surge to higher levels, politicians will always have a way to defend it. And if they are defending based on 15 Ghana cedis benchmark, they should know that when price to take so enjoy some form of benefit.
Benjamin, we're most grateful for your time this morning, sir.
You're welcome.
Benjamin Nsia is the Executive Director for the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy, CEMSA. And that's it for this conversation on the 1 cedi per litre. Well, we'll see how it goes. But let's move on to more conversation where nurses and midwives begin their full strike. The Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives had given us a roadmap for their strike. During the red armbands at this attack to 8th June, they would withdraw all OPD services, including public health services, ANCs, and specialist hospitals. We brought you some news from there where we visited certain hospitals and realized that indeed they had some as the 9th of June. And today marks the day when the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association withdraw all of their services, a total withdrawal. And that is not just all nurses and teachings to reduce services. Also in the schools. The Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association remains firm, refusing to return to the National Labour Commission and the maintain the bargaining agreement, which it said the association growing refusal to engage. They go on to list for the reasons unions have the agreement. Emphasize a legally binding agreement. Negotiations end with a signed agreement laws must be implemented. And they are not moving, they are not negotiating implementation. What is CBA? Medical insurance for nurses and their families, a 13th month salary to cushion the rise of rural incentives for health, risk allowances for those under hazardous conditions, training support, provisions for uniforms and workplace safety, compensation for extra duties and on-call responsibilities, and more and more and more. They have said all of these. These are the things they are requesting. And again, like they said, they are not calling for negotiations. They do not want it anymore. What they expect in implementation. But we know how they are essential workers, very bothersome if things do not change. Well, this morning is Prosper Toby. Prosper Toby is the chairman of the Kolebu District, Ghana Midwives Association chapter. Hello, Prosper. Good morning.
Good morning and good morning to your dear listeners.
Prosper, today is 9th June. Really, have you totally withdrawn your services?
No, we have completely withdrawn services of and I think in all the departments at Kolebu. So we are on total strike today.
Okay. Over the weekend, many people have called on you, have pleaded with you, have begged you to rescind your decision that the lives of Ghanaians are at risk if you do not return to the hospital. Aren't you listening to the plight of Ghanaians, Prosper?
Yes. I also want to ask, how many of these people have also called the health minister to appeal to him to attend to nurses? Did you hear of such? Did you hear to listen to the plight of? What I would like to say is that the health of Ghanaians, the good people of Ghana, have been entrusted into the hands of the health minister. And for the 12, the health was aware that on 9 nurses are going to withdraw all services. So we should all be asking the health minister, what exactly has he done to avert this?
But the health minister has appealed to you to return to the hospitals. A few days ago, he was at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital going around to assess the situation. Are you saying he has not had any engagement with you? He has not reached out to the leadership of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association?
I mean, I may have to update you again.
Okay.
What we're doing right now is just implementation. This very document is on the table of the health minister. If the health minister is really interested in the health of good people of Ghana, all he needed to do is to append his signature. And so all the appeals are necessary, but let's also appeal to the health minister to sign that document for us.
Well, Prosper, in the news is someone from the Ghana Midwives Association who says that this strike you are on is on their blind side. A faction in your line of work, in your association, where some people are not in agreement with your strike?
Yes, I'm aware. Very few people are not in agreement, and that disagreement is not because they are with the condition. Their disagreement has to do with the fact that we not consult them before declaring the strike. Okay, so these are very, very few people who are not happy with the way we declare the strike. But majority of all nurses in Ghana
move away from withdrawing your services to instructing all this and midwives teaching at health training institutions to withdraw their services. Why, Prosper? These people teaching the next set. They are your own people.
I must be honest with you. Health is to the roadmap first before GRNME. I can assure you that nobody is instructing them. They are only doing what the demonstration. So nobody them to actually doing it on their own.
What happens? How long? So up until so if the ministry has not implemented, Prosper, is that it?
We will. That's the one.
Has come under perpetual euphorian performance have table for
Abena, all these things, our president is being difficult. Probably not in a help sign the document. It's just a matter of getting to his office and then append his signature. He doesn't need the Madam President, the president of our association, to sit there before he signs. So I don't know why the difficulty is.
We are looking at, but again, I got to the regular Ghanaian asking questions that in this period of your strike, if someone loses their life, that is it. If you come back and somebody has died, how do we get the person back to life? And so, how about you think about the lives of people, knowing that no matter what, this will be implemented for you? Well,
have you given any assurance at any point or level?
I say this because of the views that we've been sampling so far. At this point, many Prosper. Yes, Prosper.
I want to advise that use your medium to announce to the general public, to also appeal to the health minister to do the needful. As far as we are concerned, the health of Ghanaians have been entrusted into the hands of the health minister, and we expect him to do whatever it is to make sure the good people of Ghana receive the necessary health care they need.
Okay. You, in your letter, the letter by the Ghana Registered Nurses Association and their various Facebook posts, you say that you went to by sizes. Is that meant is just one end of them said that could handle to that.
Some of the have also
of the of the general public are of the view that some of your demands are outrageous. That reduced the support for uniforms should not have been in there. Let me pick on these two and ask you request minister for this. Why that? How expensive are your uniforms, Prosper? Yes, we would like to know, since at this point all of these have come to bear.
What I would like to say is that this is negotiated document. The representative of government sat on that committee and they thought it wise and necessary to agree on that amount for uniform. So you and I cannot go into the cost of uniform at this moment. Okay. We have agreed already, and all we need is a signature. I am surprised of why they can and they an adult person who you don't know coughing into your face before. Have you experienced that before? Have you experienced somebody you know is having a tuberculosis, airborne disease, coughing into your face? Have you experienced that before? And you are waiting for medical care. Is that the situation? Is that what you're asking? But when I'm caring for you, I am lifting you because you cannot lift yourself, and I break my back. I should spend money to pay my medical bills. Is that what you're asking?
Well, so Prosper, this means that for those who are raising concerns about these things, they may not fully understand the extent of which you risk your lives to care for the Ghanaian.
Yes, yes. So we are pleading with you, use your medium to educate them. Let them know that we are asking for a basic need. Okay? I cannot continue lifting a stroke patient, breaking my back, and when I get dislocation, you expect me to use my meager, something that is not even taking me home. You expect me to use it to take care of myself. Are you being fair to the good nurses of Ghana? Madam Abena, answer that question for me. Are you sure you are being fair to nurses?
Well, Prosper, I ask these questions because of Ghanaians. That's why I'm taking your thoughts on it, so that we can
exactly. I'm also interested in your response.
Well, we honestly.
My sister is a nurse, and she's lifting stroke patients. Some are as heavy as something. Okay, we try our best to lift them. If I develop a back pain, you're telling me to use my money to take care of myself?
Well, Prosper, we really and honestly appreciate the good work that nurses in the country are doing. We know that the work you do, nobody can do it, and so we really appreciate it. It's why we are having the conversations with you, so that we can better appreciate it, and for our viewers to also appreciate where you are coming from, because we also know that it will not be easy for you to just withdraw your services like that.